Testing, testing, testing. Okay. So, I should actually update this. There we go. So, today our plan is to tackle character generation. Right. So as always, we will quickly recap what have we done thus far. So, actually, written it out because I will soon hopefully have this at a point I can start playtesting. So we have our initial principles. I think it wasn't here before. I've added a bit. The basic says, if it doesn't otherwise say, round up. We updated trait tests to mention contested roles. We updated. Oh, is there some depreciation in? Yep. Character traits, character skills. So in skills, we actually got rid of a couple of skills. We got rid of the weapon skills because it didn't make sense to call them a skill check. We're going to treat that a little bit differently. We've also added the concept of a skill roll and a passive skill, primarily because I was getting to a point where it's like, I want to do the inverse of a normal trait test, where it's I want a skill but the trait can be open. So that's how that's working. Inspired actions haven't changed. We've added the concept of changing your concept and temporary concepts. That's done. Slightly change this bit of if you both use a bond concept simultaneously. I don't know, call it invoking. Try and keep the language consistent. Hello. Wait, do I refer to as channeling up or as concepts? No, refer to as invoking. Okay, that's fine. Yes, we've changed some of the rules there. Combat has changed. So last time we were writing the combat rules. This time we have actually got there. It started off as me being like, oh, we'll just do what D&D did, and then it ended up being something completely different. So you've got 3 AP and 1 RP. RP is reaction point, AP is action points. Get them back at the start of every turn. What's the main bits that are different? So aid is different to help because it's a +2 bonus, so you can stack multiple helps. instead of it being like the help action where it's just one person can help. Attacks remain the same. Disengage now lets you move a quarter of your movement speed. As well as not provoke opportunity attacks. Mark is an action we have added. It doesn't do anything really at the moment. You just get to spend an AP when you are making an attack roll extra to what the normal action would be. And if you hit, the target gains a mark from you as a condition. And then my current thinking is, instead of Hunter's Mark being a spell, a ranger has just rules that apply to if they have applied the marked condition to a character. But it can also be used theoretically by other things. I could maybe do it where if you have an ability that lets you 1v1 me, bro, what I could do is say, if you as a fighter or a paladin mark a character, they get disadvantage or something for attacking other people, or if they attack other people, you can get some cool effects. So effectively, the mark condition lets me apply other stuff on top of it. There's the prepare action, that hasn't really changed. Use item, use skill. So instead of going hiding is this much AP or stuff like that, it's now just using a skill. Any skill is just 2 AP, because there's no reason that hide needed its own special rule set. It's like, no, it's just the same as any other action. You want to use an action, it's all under one thing. What else has changed? I'm tempted. I'm not 100% sure yet. I don't know if I want it to be the purview of fighters only. But part of me is wondering if in the attack roll section, because we currently have rules for grappling and shoving, I wonder if we should have rules for disarming, because it's like the other classic thing. But do you want it to be the purview of maybe just the martial classes? The big change from traditional D&D is, unless a feature specifically states, or a stat box specifically states, not everyone can make attacks of opportunity, which should make encounters more interesting. Because it's not just, okay everyone, we're stuck in place because of attacks of opportunity. It's a bit more fluid. Other things, harmful concepts. So what you can choose is when you take damage, but before you reduce your hit points, you can invoke a harmful concept. You can create a harmful concept that then can be invoked later. So a mild harmful concept may be blood in the eyes or a blow to the head, whereas a severe one may be a broken arm or leg or a punctured lung. And so you can only have one of each degree of effect at a time. And so you have mild, which is you can reduce the damage taken by 10% of your hit point maximum, which disappears at the end of the encounter. This is a bit different, because as you can see, mild only lasts for the encounter. Moderate lasts until the end of the next session. Severe lasts until you hit a narrative milestone. And if you invoked that concept, the bigger the injury, the bigger the concept bonus that can be applied against you. But as I said, mild is 10% of your hit point maximum. Moderate is 25%. Severe is 50%. So you're reducing a load of damage, but you're applying to yourself. It's not so much an injury, it's a concept. So the way concepts work is you have a high concept, a floor concept. You and the DM and other characters can invoke a concept for an effect. Say someone wants your roll to succeed, you would invoke your concept to get a bonus. If the game guide wanted you to fail, they would invoke a negative concept you have to make your roll harder, reduce the value, reduce the damage. A character who is trying to, say you're in a one-on-one PvP moment, you could invoke your opponents to make them less likely to hit you, that kind of thing. So harmful concepts is you're putting off damage now because later you're putting off damage now, but later you may regret it because they are more likely potentially to, say, hit you. The other thing is dropping to 0 hit points is very different. So it still has instant death if, when your damage reduces you to 0, there is damage remaining and the damage equals or exceeds your hit point maximum, you're dead. But if you fall unconscious, the following happens. When you are unconscious, you do not make death saving throws. What you do is, at the start of each turn, you gain 1 degree of the new wounded condition. If a character takes damage while unconscious, and on 0 hit points, they gain 2 degrees of the wounded condition. If a healing effect gets you back up, the wounded condition does not disappear. It will only disappear at the end of a combat encounter. If the wounded condition reaches 5 degrees, the effect, based on the kind of encounter, determines what happens. If it's a critical engagement, which is basically a boss fight, your character dies at 5 wounded conditions. So effectively, you can be down on the ground for 5 turns. If you do not get off the ground within 5 turns, you die. If a character picks you back up, you were down for 2 turns, and then you go down again for another 3 turns, you die. And then you have, in a standard encounter, which is most encounters, you are what's referred to as knocked out. So the character is knocked out, you and the game guide should determine what happens next. Narratively, you are removed from the encounter. You cannot be brought back into the encounter. No one can heal you. No one can resurrect you. It is, you are out of the encounter for that period of time. So it could be like if you're fighting on a waterfall, you're pushed off a cliff. Or you're taken away as a prisoner or dragged out of the fight by a retainer NPC. Basically, you are out of the fight. And all considerations. Death is an option that can be picked. So if someone wants, I want a really gritty, when you die, it's like, okay, well, you can still pick death. It's just you also the option to remove them by other means. Obviously, you can stabilize someone, at which point they will not progress the wounded condition. But if they take damage, then. So it does make you kind of go, okay, well, let's hope they're doing non-lethal damage because there's now a risk. So we put limit break in, which is basically a big tank effect, a big heal effect. I should mark this. Yes, there is a LB system like in FF14. As you progress, level 3 can only be done in a boss fight, which is why they have big effects like you reduce damage taken for this combat round by 80%. A celestial rebirth is anyone who's knocked out or died within the last minute gets revived to 1 HP and standing, and then everyone gets all their health back, removes all wounded, and removes mild harmed concepts. Damage is just you deal a fuck ton of damage, and then summon is you get to basically do primal summons in FF14. Sorry, not FF14. FF14 doesn't have primal summons. Traditional FF. We have some details for combat on a map and what's it called? Theatre of the Mind. And that's basically where we got to. So now we're on to character generation. So obviously this bit we had already done before, character concepts, generating your stats. So we're up to ancestries. So the way ancestries work is it's who you're descended from. In terms of appearance, it is up to you as the player. Some ancestries will have physical descriptors of common traits, which you can pay as much or little attention to as you wish. Mechanics-wise, you choose an ancestry appropriate for your character, and you get 3 ancestry features that apply to yourself. And being a 5th level character, you get 2 more ancestry features. If you come from a mixed ancestry, you can pick a combination of ancestry features from those ancestries you are tied to, and choose a combination of the different core attributes you feel best fit your character. There are also templates, which are special ancestries that modify a normal ancestry, which work the same as a mixed heritage. And you have the right to make up your own ancestry. Creature types are a little bit different how they used to work, because basically now some creature types have mechanical effects. So for example, every construct resists the poison condition and poison damage, and are immune to disease, don't need to eat, sleep, breathe, and can effectively have weird sleep. All the Fae get 2 trance. All the servants of the gods get to resist radiant damage. All the servants of darkness and evil get to resist fire damage. So I'll show you in a second. So basically, if you have a creature type, say if you're an elf, you have humanoid and fae. So humanoid obviously gives you fuck all. But if you are also fae, that means all elves automatically, they don't have to pick an ancestry feature, get to trance, and can't be made to magically be put to sleep. But also this will apply to all monsters. So it kind of reduces the size of stat blocks and the character stuff. It'll make sense in a minute. Then creature size also has a rule. So if you're a tiny creature, you have advantage, or a small creature, you have advantage on stealth, and you have a +2 bonus or a +1 bonus to your AC. Medium, you get nothing. A large creature has a reach of 2 meters. A huge creature has a reach of 3 meters. A titanic creature has a reach of 5 meters. But a huge and titanic creature has disadvantage on stealth. So there is actually some slight mechanical effects to size as well as just the grapple condition. So to show you here, so humans. Every ancestry has 10 features. You get to pick 3 of them. At level 5, you get an extra 2. So you would have 5 of the 10 features you get to pick. If you were, however, a mixed ancestry, so let's just say you had human and you had dwarf. So firstly, you have this. This bit is fixed. All humans are humanoids. All humans are small or medium. All humans move 6 meters. All humans have a rough lifespan of 90 years. All dwarves, on the other hand, are humanoid, size medium, movement speed 6 meters, lifespan 350 years. So what you could do, for example, is... Actually, let's go with elf. So let's say you're an elf. You're human and fae. You're medium, movement speed 6 meters, lifespan 750 years. So you could go, for example, if you're elf human, you would go, right, I want to take the type of elf, so I am a human and I am a fae. You can pick to be medium, or because you have human lineage, small. Movement speed is the same for both. And then you would pick a lifespan. And then instead of being just human, where you get 3 of these traits, and then an extra 2, instead what you would get is you could pick you could pick 3 traits from this list and the elf list. And then at level 5 you can pick 2 more. So that's how mixed ancestry works. Yes. If you wanted to be... So the deliberate thing here is to be incredibly clear, we are not deliberately making and copying over D&D stuff, because technically they are their creations. So you have humans, you have dwarves, you have halflings, which is basically the small folk from a certain book series that likes to be very litigious. Orcs, dragons, bird people, animal people, but mostly mammals. We'll probably put fish and amphibians as something else. Reptile people, giant kin. You're not a full giant, you're just part giant. Kobolds, ooze people. And then fae have the elves. Centaur, changelings, fairy sprites, gnomes, goblins, and satyr. And then you have talking animals, so awakened animals, effectively. Insects, plant people. And then you have the templates, which is you're touched by the realm of death, touched by the realm of infernals, touched by the realm of dreams, touched by the realm of gods, touched by the realm of the elements, touched by lycanthropy, touched by the fae, altered, constructed, outside, touched by eldritch powers. So say you wanted to make a tiefling. I'll say tiefling because that makes sense with stuff. You would go, because most tieflings are generally considered humans who have been touched by infernal powers, but you could be an elf, you could be a tiefling elf, a tiefling dwarf. So what you would do is you would pick one of these core templates here. So you could pick human, dwarf, whatever, and then you would apply the mask touched thing and you would be a tiefling. If you wanted to be someone who was tied to the gods, you could go like, I am an elf and I am eternal touched, at which point you may gain some, if using D&D terms, some celestial abilities. If you want to be touched by fire, water, ice, metal, that kind of thing, you would go with the element touch. Well, actually, no, we'll go with the outer plane, so fire, earth, water, air. If you want to be metal, you would go with constructed, because obviously everyone will build their robots to match them. So you would be an elf robot, or a human robot, or a gnome robot. You would be a robot built by those people and therefore with traits similar to them. What's probably going to happen with templates is you actually get one less, because the template will probably give you some automatic features more than normal. It will probably cost you an ancestry feature just to pick a template. Now, then comes the question of, could I be a half human, half elf who is fey touched or dream touched or infernal touched? So like, my dad is an elf, my mum is a human, and my ancestor made a deal with a devil. Well, you would then go, I lose one feature from mass touched. So you would end up with two features, and then you could pick two features from between human, elf, and mass touched, and then get two more later. So you could be a were-ooze, yes. Well, you wouldn't be a were-ooze, you would be an oozeling who is a were-wolf, for example. So the main difficulty has been coming up with 10 things. There are some core rules. You don't get a skill. The closest you get is something like elves have with keen-eyed, where you may get advantage on a skill, but you will not get the skill. You will not get weapons, you will not get tools, you will not get languages unless they are the weird special languages from like the other planes. It is all mechanical effects, which is very important because no race should be tied to things like, oh, I'm good at stone cutting or weapon making or jewelry making or whatever, or cooking. It's these ancestry features are tied to the nature of your existence rather than a cultural thing. So humans are as diverse in the game as they are in the real world. Their big thing is they do not have a creator deity to tie themselves to. How that comes across is they get some weird abilities. So they can get access to basically wizard magic. They get some spells for free. They can choose to have the requirements for moving between relationship levels is lower, which means it's easier for them, and they can form bonds to more individuals. Because they're creatorless, they may have advantage on trait tests to focus against the effects of an eternal. They have advantage on the determination tests to rally their spirits or against being frightened. Some humans can choose to be resistant to poisons and diseases and have an increased lifespan. Some humans may be psychic. Some humans have it easier to have inspired. Doesn't mean they pass their tests on a 19, automatic success on a 19, but they do become inspired easier. They can march twice as long as persistence hunters. They find it easier to multi-class, or they can get buffs for being in a group of people. Dwarves, on the other hand, have a creator deity or deities. I leave that up to the game guide to decide. And so, but their features are largely that they have an easier tapping into the elemental planes. So, for example, dwarves can pick to have an action that costs 1 AP that lets them teleport 10 meters along a piece of continuous earthworm stone. They can have growths on stone-like growths on their skin that gives them bonus HP as they level up. They can get night vision. Some are blessed to be able to deal with being near lava for a period of time. Some can deal with high altitude. Some get druid magic. Some are bonded with the plane of water that lets them submerge themselves or allies within water to basically, during a rest, to remove a harmful, to reduce a harmful condition. They can resist psychic powers. They can resist poisons. No one knows if dwarves actually have guts made of stone. It's quite unclear how literal that is, but they seem to be able to resist a lot of stuff. And then Stone Speaker is they can speak primordial, but it's because it's part of a larger ability, which is, hey, you can get tremor sense as the stone literally tells you what's walking nearby. Obviously, the beast people is largely going to be animal traits to try and let people play as many animals as possible. Elves, for example, have something slightly different. I need to modify this because currently this ability is kind of crap. Because this ability doesn't make sense, because I'm giving you a feature that lets you remove the feature cost. So unless I make features cost more than 1, it doesn't make sense. Unless you took multiple templates, then it kind of makes sense. But I should probably add something to this just to make it a bit more beefy. Elves can talk to animals. They can make portals to the realm of dreams, especially to the domain of their archfey, because in this setting, because for my general stuff, elves are agents, envoys, servants of archfey. So they have an archfey in the realm of the fey that they probably all their family answers to. They can get their night vision. I need to work out the court stuff. Because elves are tied to the court, so they need to have something for being seelie, unseelie, or oral. They can teleport a shorter distance than the dwarf, but they don't have the stone requirement. They have advantage on sight. They can cast wizard spells, or they can gain themselves an extra movement speed. Then I need to add another ability here. So basically, there are 2 abilities I need to add to elves. I need to add something to do with the courts and something to do. It was going to be Sleep Plus, giving them trance, but now I've made that a Fey trait that all Fey have. I've got to kind of come up with something else, probably a bit more eldritchy. Because the Fey are ever so slightly eldritch horrors. So yeah, so as I said, we've got halfling. We'll probably have Yeah, they'll probably be called the Waterborn or something, I don't know. The other Fae are centaurs, changelings, fairy sprites, gnomes, goblins, and satyr. We've then got talking animals, insectoids, plantoids. Plantoids I've been having a lot of fun with because I keep coming up with weird abilities for them. Currently, plant people, my current thoughts are they might get some natural armor. I think because that'll be probably something I need to add generally is everyone is getting a natural armor, which is a +1 or +2 to their AEC, or HT in this case because it's hit target. Armor class doesn't make sense. Hit target makes a lot more sense. Yes, you could play a mushroom. I'm thinking maybe having the ability for plant people to have like a variant of armor where it's effectively they have temporary hit points that will regrow over time as they basically regrow their plant, or a bonus AC that lasts until they take damage. The ability to blend in as a regular plant, and the ability that if they're it's not going to make them useful for, it's not going to give them the weapon skill to use bows, but if they were to make bows, they could literally make arrows out of their body, just rapid grow arrows. I could also make it javelins, because then everyone roughly has something they could use. It's fairly you grow something to throw or shoot at people. And then also animal friend. So yeah, that's currently where we're at. We're currently at Ancestry, and then as I said, the other thing is making classes, because background is done. Background is basically, I think we covered this last time. Background is you get +1 to a trait, 10 HP as basic, choose 2 languages, get 2 skills, and get 1 tool, a simple weapon or a dagger. Though you could get a martial weapon if your game guide permits it, because it suits the background. But generally we go with simple weapon. And then you get a feat. And basically what it means is you can play level 0 games, as I'm calling it. Level 0 games being you're all on 10 HP. Here's the basics of the game. You get no classes, no weird stuff. It's just this is how it works. Go for it. You have your ancestry, you have your background. That's it. Let you play the basics of the game, and then later on you can pick a class, progress through the classes. The interesting thing I'd be very interested to see if anyone tries to do is run an entirely level 0 game, where you basically go, we are so low magic, you don't even get the fighter class. Because that way, I'll have to work out how to do starting equipment. That's the only thing. Something I should make a note of. Yes, you could be a werewolf mushroom with a sword. It should be noted that where touched will be less true lycanthropy. It will be closer to, in D&D terms, I think it's not exclusive to D&D. I think it is a general fantasy term. It's what's known as a shifter. So it's basically you were not bitten by a werewolf, but your ancestor was bitten by a werewolf, or you've been cursed with a lesser form of lycanthropy that means you can just gain animal-like traits for a short period of time. which means you don't have a lot of the downsides of being a actual lycanthrope. I'll have to work out how lycanthropes actually work. Languages, the main thing to know is there are no racial languages. You are expected to have make up languages based off the kingdoms, even if your kingdom is all of one kind of lineage. You shouldn't just go, oh, it's the elf kingdom, so they all speak elven. It should be like, no, this is the kingdom of Avalon, and therefore they all speak Avalon. The other important thing is if you know a language, you know how to speak, read, write, and the appropriate sign language for that language. And there is the permission for a game guide to just go, there's one language, everybody knows it, simple. But then there are the special languages, and we've also introduced the trait of root language, which is if languages share a root language, then it will be easier for you to interpret what is being said. So, for example, Abyssal and Infernal, which is the language of demons and devils, is tied to a root language called Diabolic. Eternal is the language of Eternals and their servants, which therefore means it might be used in religious texts in the same way Judaism uses Hebrew or the Roman Catholic Church uses Latin. Primordial is the root language for all the different languages of the different elements. You have Runic, which is kind of a language used by giants and then has been carried out by those who use them in crafting. And then you have Feastcan, which isn't supernatural. It's a special language. So something we haven't done yet is relationships and party dynamics. That's going to be the last thing we do, because that would be the last bit of character generation. Is once you've worked out who your characters are, you then work out how you are related, how have you interacted in the past, etc. And then and then it would be, here's level 0 games, here's the rules. The thing I'll probably have to put in the game guide section is making a note that if you want to play a game that is largely set around level 0, still giving the characters rewards. So it might be, oh, if they do a thing, instead of gaining a level, they may gain a feat or some skills. Different things they can do as rewards. And then, yeah, you have your classes, which is going to be a whole bloody thing. And then I need to write the magic rules, the downtime rules, the crafting rules, and then I have some ideas for different weird side rules. I have an entire thing that came about. Yeah. I mean, the key thing is, if you think about it, if someone liked how the combat system, the test system, the character system worked, it'd be very easy to go, okay, we will not be using races in 5e games. We will just lift the Ancestry system from this game and apply it across. Because you just got to change the class names for which spell lists to use, change a couple of details. Like, it's very possible that you could just go, okay, we're just going to lift the Ancestry system. Or lift how backgrounds work, etc. my line is, the thing I'm waiting for is, when I have got more of this written out, is I want to see how long until someone either accuses me of being too close to D&D or not close enough to D&D, and then there'll be me sat there going, yes, if I can get both at the same time, that means I have achieved the goal. I have achieved the perfect. Um, that is the goal. Shit. I also need magic. Because if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's the if I've learned one thing, if you manage to get people from both sides of the argument telling you you're doing something wrong, that probably means you're doing something right. Because you've hit the sweet spot in the middle. Um, but no, my hope is, I think the way I'm going to look at this is, if I can get the templates done in relationships and the level 0 stuff done, while there won't be any magic and there won't be any equipment, what I can do is theoretically publish. I'll probably publish it to for people I know IRL first. Because let's be fair, so many of them are bloody games designers, they'll all have opinions. What I can do is I can publish for them to see, get feedback on, while I continue working on the level 1 plus stuff. Magic and equipment. Um, and then once I have magic and equipment, I can work on crafting, and then I can work on magic items, and then I can work on downtimes, and then we just continue our way down. Oh yeah, that was the one. It was there was rules in D&D. It was like a paragraph long in the DMG of how to climb on top of a creature that's bigger than you. And I was sat there going, do I need rules for climbing on top of people who are bigger than you? And I was kind of sat there going, it doesn't really make much sense. I feel each game guide would have their own way for doing if it's a large thing. But what if like you had a huge thing like a titanic creature, like you're actually fighting a titan? Could you climb onto them then? And then it was like, what if I just tried to game if I Shadow of the Colossus? Which is basically what I'm currently considering, having optional rule for how to fight a kaiju, which is just because the Tarrasque is okay, but we could do like some actual proper Godzilla style kaiju here. Like if I can come up with 5 different kaiju, and it's like you can fight them through piloting vehicles like an airship, that's allowed. Let you have your Thunderchild moment. For those who know their War of the Worlds references, we could let you like have, I don't know, there was a fusion mechanic I made for 5e for gem blades I could copy over. So you could fight them all as a giant woman. Or you could Shadow of the Colossus it and just literally scale whatever giant monster you're fighting. And I was like, yep, okay, I think this is good enough to have its own rule. This is the thing that D&D forgets. D&D, this is the thing a lot of people forget about D&D. D&D does not have a lot of rules. Have you ever watched Steven Universe? That would explain what I mean by giant woman. Um, what was I saying? The big problem with Yeah, it's basically that. I had a set of magic items that if you held them, you could fuse with other users to basically form giant versions of your characters fused together, and it had its own combat system. Um, which will probably be ported over to this. Um, yeah, I think the thing a lot of people forget about D&D is that D&D, the problem 5e had was it had no rules. It had like some core rules, it had spells, it had items, and then it was like, we have no more rules for you. It's like, how does this work? You've got to make it up, DM. Here's a paragraph with some vagary. Now make it up as you go along. It's like, oh, fucking thank you. Which is why so many of the rules here are like, go to the GG corner, because the GG corner is where I am just writing everything. I'm writing session zeros. I'm writing rules for how to deal with character death, when to make trait tests, why to make trait tests, how to fall forward with trait tests. Because it's like, oh, yeah, you could just say, no, you failed, that's it. But that's not fun, that's not dramatic. Why don't you instead go, are you trying to recall a bit of information? You don't recall the information. You failed the test. But guess what? You do recall that there is someone or a book title that has the information, and you can go out and find the information to get the information and proceed. You know, not going to let you, like, you failed, so you don't get to know, but you know how to know, or you know how to proceed. So I've got to do rules for that, social rules for like how to build relationships, what happens if, what's the difference between a relationship with an NPC or a deity, or an organization. I've got to have like, how does exploration work? How does travel work? So we've defined it. Exploration is when you're searching something that doesn't exist. Travel is when you search for something that you do know exists. So travel is, you know the route. The route has been charted. You are just traveling. Exploration is, I don't know the route. Let's try and make it. Traps, stuff like that. I think the general rule would be a game guide can always make up their own rules, but what I will do is try and give you an answer that even if you do not find it satisfactory, I will at least have given you something to consider, to think about, and then to work upon, replace, destroy, and use your own instead. It's like Ancestries. One of the first things I said of Ancestries is, where is it? It's here we go. If no ancestry matches what you're looking for, feel free to either make a custom ancestry using some of the features already used to make your list, or just make it up. Because at the end of the day, it's a game. Nearly every chapter has, you can just ignore everything I have written here and use something you think does the job better. But I will at least have given you something to attempt it. Which is more than fucking D&D ever did. It's like, I will give you the rules for a boat. I will show you how to use a boat. I will give you rules on how to fight with boats. And then you can copy that rule and apply it to airships, because there is no difference between a boat and an airship, and there is no difference between an airship and a boat and a spaceship. Yeah, yeah, the problem is the rules in the DMG are absolutely crap, if I be honest. Like, I love D&D. It's a wonderful game system, but as someone who has been a DM and looked to the DM's guide for like assistance, it is useless. Like, I'm not one of those people who has never looked at the DMG and gone, huh, I really wish I had a rule for this, because I know what the line from Wizard of the Coast often is, have you read the DMG? And it's like, yes, yes I have, and that's why I'm now going to tell you there isn't a rule for this. There's a paragraph with a suggestion that is very weak. It's, like, what the few things I want to make very clear with the system is this game system is intended for very pulpy, heroic fantasy stories, which is why you have rules like knocked out, because if you watch most pulp action films, the hero never dies. What the hero does is they lose, they get knocked out of the fight, like pushed off a cliff, maybe they get shot and captured, I don't know. Something happens to get them out of the fight, but they don't die. And that's kind of the genre that I'm leaning on. It's like pulp meets heroic fantasy. But I do want to acknowledge that other genres exist and try to allow you. So, for example, if you want a low magic setting, well, for one, you probably don't want to use these ancestry features because a lot of their nature is magical. What you might want to do is go, no matter what race you're, no matter what ancestry you come from, just use the basic human. Ignore these certain ancestries, just go with the ones that affect the core systems of gameplay. And then from there you would go, okay, we're mostly going to be level 0 play with some variants, or we will let you take classes, but you have to take the non-magic options, depending on how low fantasy gritty you want to be. Because, like, you still probably let them have the fighter, you might let them take the ranger, but without the spell casting, maybe without the animal companion. Like, you're definitely reducing the number of classes, because half of them are going to be magic themed, but you could do that, and I want to make sure that I mention which dials you turn if you want to have that genre. Likewise, if you want to be survival, it's like, okay, well, for some very basic things, if you want a survival game, I would make it knocked out doesn't exist. It is just death. You make it very clear it is death. You might want to twiddle the knob on how many degrees of wounded it takes to kill you, because 5 for an encounter is not a lot. Unless you are wanting players to avoid combat where possible, at which point, sure, yep, we're going a bit Call of Cthulhu there, but definitely a thing you could do. And you could also, for example, make it that the harm concepts take longer to heal if you want them included at all. You could choose to ignore marks of fate and inspired actions. You could choose to still keep them because they keep that kind of interest going. They vary up combat and abilities enough. Like, this is the thing, I want to probably put in a genre section that's just, here is the genre it is designed for, but here are some knobs you might want to play with. If you want to try and get as close in the system as presented to that thing you are doing. Because in reality, if you really want low gritty fantasy, my line to you would be, have you ever played Warhammer the fantasy, the role-playing game? Because that's actually what you want. Or Call of Cthulhu. Those are the kind of games you want, not this. But if you have to use this system, I would at least inform you of, here are the dials. Because, yeah, the DMG is just like, oh yeah, you can totally do low gritty fantasy, just use this thing, and it's like, wizards, that isn't helpful. Especially because I think some of their advice sometimes is like, hey, guess what you could do? You could just. Uh, that was for the adventure I was writing, but let's go to the DM tree. Just for some examples of what I'm talking about here. Because it like, has some vague things about factions, magic, create your campaign. Yeah, is that playstyles? Yeah, because it goes like here's hack and slash, here's immersive storytelling, campaign theme, variations in theme. Oh, here we go. So you have heroic fantasy, which is they do state it is the baseline. Sword and sorcery. How do they recommend you do that? Yeah, they're just like, oh yeah, sword and sorcery. It's exactly the same game. You just slightly, you're just playing the game for slightly slight stuff. Epic fantasy. Yeah, because what they really say here is, oh yeah, look at this other D&D subsetting that doesn't exist. Because we don't have Dark Sun. They've just released Dragonlance. Mythic fantasy, just look at myths of other cultures. Like, they're not even telling you how to do it, it's just, oh yeah, read these other things for how to do it. Dark fantasy. If you want a horror spin, go you look at the monster manual for some horror monsters. Evoke mood. It's like this isn't. It doesn't help. Intrigue, mystery, swashbuckling. Like Wuxia. A campaign that draws on elements of Asian martial art movies is a perfect match for D&D. Is it? All you're saying is re-flavor gear. Re-flavor teleport spells as high-flying acrobatic leaps. Change the weapon names to something Asian. It's like... It's like, how do I phrase it? I would, like... My genres would be, we are pulp meets heroic fantasy. That is where the rules assume. Do you want to play gritty, low fantasy? Cool. Here is how you do it. Here are the dials to swap. Do you want survival fantasy, either for a horror game or a dungeon crawl? Here are the dials to swap. Because that's the other one. It's like, oh yeah, you could use the gritty rules. Where's the gritty rules? There's gritty rules somewhere. Is it adventure options? Yeah. Oh yeah, this is where it gets fun because you have. Oh yeah, you could. Oh god, don't even get me started on horror and honor, sorry, and sanity as new ability scores. Oh yeah, because you know what? We all need everyone the ability score honor. Sanity is something I need to look into as like a. Is there a possible way to make Eldritch Horror not entirely ableist? I'm not sure if it can be done, but I will at least try. um, Honor is just like, no, throw it in the fucking bin, just stop. Yeah, it's like rules for fear and horror. It's like, ah, yes, if something's frightening, they can get the frightened condition. I'm like, you realise the frightened condition. It's like you cannot move towards the thing. and you have disadvantage if you see the thing. It's like, great, wonderful. That makes the game entirely horror. Like, yep, that evokes dark fantasy horror campaigns. All right. Oh yeah, and then madnesses. Oh yeah. Yeah. Ah yeah. Here we go. Here's where they start to go into the if you want a gritty fantasy, you go, ah yes. You don't get hit die after short rests. You have to use a healer's kit, which I guess I've kind of done. I'm not deliberately trying to evoke it. It was the idea that because I wanted short rest to be more interesting. One of the things we did with short rest was you have to have a meal. If you have a meal, oh, so to start a short rest, you need a campfire. You then cook a meal. If you cook a meal and consume the meal, you can then expend hit die to recover hit points. It's a bit like this with the healer's kit, but at least with the meal, it was here's a chance for role playing some bonding rather than, um, you know, rather than whatever the fuck it was they were trying in the other thing. Um, Healing surges. What was healing surges? Oh, this was you can use actions to recover hit points if you don't have any healers, which is having an optional rule for a lack of healers. I would say one, having a lack of healers is a deliberate choice by the party. Two, what happens when they suddenly get a healer? Do you get rid of the optional rule? Do you keep the optional rule and stop the healer feeling important? And then you have slow natural healing, which is you don't regain hit points at a long rest. You instead get a short rest as a long rest. Yeah, because this is a yeah, you get the epic hero where a short rest is 5 minutes and a long rest is an hour. Or you have gritty where a short rest is 8 hours and a long rest is 7 days. It's like, oh, don't like this. I'm not even going to look at firearms, alien technology. Yeah. This is the problem. They kind of went, here is a thing you might want in a game. Here is a single paragraph. It's like, no, don't do that. That's a weird one. Hitting cover. Cleaving through creatures. Injuries. Oh god, the injuries table. The massive damage. Morale. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. But this is the problem. D&D was very good at coming up with a paragraph to give a rule. The problem with the paragraph rule is you lose a lot. As said, there's a reason why what I want to present is here is a dial you can modify rather than here is a hard fast rule because say for example lingering injuries, yeah, people love lingering injuries, people love fumble tables. um the problem with both of those things is with a lingering injury, it quickly turns because usually lingering injury isn't easy to heal and very quickly turns into a spiral. The key thing about concepts is it's something the game guide has to invoke, and the player gets a mark of fate for it being invoked. As well as I said, you could modify the amount of damage they reduce. You could modify the time it takes to remove them. Those two things are valid. I wouldn't, however, go, this thing is permanent unless you meet this very obscure condition, or this thing takes a week or a year. Like, the worst one is you reduce the damage by 50%. It lasts until you get a milestone, which is basically me going to you, hey, we use milestone XP, milestone leveling, sorry. When you think a narrative beat has been hit, this thing stops. Mainly because I like milestone XP. Combat XP gets very weird. Also, just trying to calculate XP is a pain in the bum. But yes, I'd rather give you switches rather than fast rules. I'd rather give you, if I'm going to give you a fast rule, it has to be something that gives something to the game. Lingering injuries doesn't do it. And I think you actually get more creativity out of a harmful thing, because it's like, okay, here's a mild thing. What could the mild thing be? Blood in the eyes, knocks the head. People can get very creative over what the thing is that is affecting them. And because it's partially in the player's hands, they themselves are leaning into it. Same with knocked out, same stuff like that. And again, I've given a measure of safety to a player. Now what we can do is we can look at it and we can go, okay, we're going to remove that safety net. Right, so I'm also now going to be focusing a bit on these. While we're discussing stuff, but no, giving people options. Options is always the key, I think. It's very easy to ignore options, which is sad. It's, I guess it's the way I've come up with games design. It's the more options you give the players for how they play their game, the better. How do I want to do this? So, elves. What if I gave elves to make adaptable more interesting? What if what if we gave if we gave the ability to pick a resistance? Ooh, 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 ooh. What if? What if during a short rest they could, when they complete a rest, death, the heavens. Uh, yeah. So whenever you complete a rest, you get to change what damage you're resistant to. Because you literally you are literally made to travel the realms. That was the next question. What weird... wait, was there one? Oh yeah, Blessing of the Courts. Um, What's weird about the elves? What weird about the fact? I'm not quite sure. We might leave that for a bit and we'll try and work that out after. I'm not really sure what we could do for the Sealy unsealing, but for context, you have the Sealy, the Summer Court, the Unsealy, the Winter Court, and the Auroral Court is kind of the court in the middle. I should probably also add that note. Let's consider something else. Let's go with the halflings. It is just copy and paste. So, for one thing, a halfling is going to be small. Halfling is small. Now, how I try to get some inspiration is I look at how did I interpret them in my own setting, because it gives me ideas to bounce off. So, that one they have no god. I think we'll go with they still have a creator deity known for luck. Luck, 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 luck. Unity, luck. Okay. community. I have some ways of making community kind of stuff work. What I can do is actually. Oh shit. Lightly lean on type. I don't want it to be food. That isn't what I'm going for. Yeah, I think so. To do a short rest. Yeah, let's send that. trying to come up with interesting things. I'm just trying to do a bit of research into. Currently, my research is going into what the hell is a hearthstone, actually. Currently, it is just the stone of a hearth, which is like, I see. For some reason, I should have known that was going to be the answer. Okay, let's try this. How does D&D treat a halfling? Lucky, yeah. Brave. Okay, yeah, we could work with this. It's a kind of. They too have the tie to natural magic, a bit like dwarves. Is it? I think the way I've written a lot of it is a lot of the traditional races have kind of ties to nature in different ways. So dwarves have ties to elementalism on a very traditional level, which is why they are good with the air in high altitude, the water with the lakes, fire with lava, and then of course stone. Whereas orcs are more nature on the surface. They're more dealing with the animals and stuff. I wonder if I can move some of the animal stuff, because the way I've written halflings seem to be they do a lot of druidy bits. So I wonder if maybe I move the animal stuff to halfling and then orcs get more traditional. I guess the other thing you go with is the classic halfling thing of, oh yeah, they don't feel they can drink a lot, which is often done as the kind of resist poison, resist stomach stuff. It's like, yeah. On the other hand, let's keep that to dwarves. I think let's have that be a dwarvish trait. Because if I just make everything have the option of being resistant to bloody poison, then you won't get anywhere. Plus, I guess at that point, what you would say is, okay, you want to do that, you could be half dwarf, half halfling. Oh, yeah. I think what this is, it perfectly encapsulates kind of the thing with some traits will be common amongst multiple lineages, just because the way they have all come to be. But there are differences. There are some unique traits. For example, no one else is going to get luck. Don't think anyone else is going to get the ley line stuff. Maybe the plant people, maybe. But like the innately magical animal friend, the community stuff, some of these things are more generic. But what that means is the unique stuff are unique. You just got some bits where you can go, okay, these are common traits. We can maybe have some fun with that. Which is nice. We'll probably finish at 6, because that will give me then a bit of time. To do some bits. So what are we going to do for odds? We're still going to be medium. Okay, how have I written orcs? Folk. What's it called? Relentless Endurance. That's the one I wanted. That's what two from you. Question is, what else to give? Because they don't go down. 3, 4, orcs, 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 orcs. What other features are common? That's a difficult question. Hmm. Um, do that. Orc size is generally quite large, so why don't we consider um thing where you count as a large person for pushing, grappling and stuff? It's still the you're a big person. You're a big person. That would do. Oh, This just gives them something a bit out of combat, but still kind of fits the theme. So we've got slightly better at combat in group. You don't go down as easy as others. You count as larger for pushing and pulling stuff. You get nature magic. You can commune with plants and animals. You can get some holy magic. Still got 3 more things. What if... How do I phrase it? Where's my actions? Action, 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 actions, action, combat. current thought is orcs kind of. Humans are used to just walking long distance. Orcs are more like, we will sprint, like quick run, quick run, quick run. It's a durable build. Orcs are used to. So I guess the way I kind of look at it is. Oh, fuck! I just pulled the muscle. Oh, give me just a second, everyone. Okay, I think it's. I mean, it still hurts a bit. Yep, pull the leg muscle. Right, I think we'll call it there, but I'll quickly summarise what we've managed to do. So basically, we've got humans who are kind of community play with the core rules. They don't have gods, so it leads to some weird stuff. We have dwarves who do have gods, but their big thing is kind of affinity for the elemental plane. So a lot of their abilities are kind of themed around the four outer elemental planes. Primarily Earth, but also some other stuff. Halflings are going to be. Halflings and orcs are both nature themed. Halflings also this kind of luck community, so they're kind of like part nature, part community. Humans are community and playing with general systems. Orcs are nature, so they're playing against dwarfs for the nature magic, but they do also get clerical magic. They have a lot of stuff themed about nature, but it's kind of where dwarves are nature with the elements, and halflings are nature in a more traditional, we're going to talk to the plants, stuff like that. It's orcs tend to be it's endurance in nature. It's we run across the plains, we resist poisons and diseases. I've got one more thing I have to work out, but we'll do that out of thing. We've now got them talking to animals, plants. They get druid magic, they get cleric magic, they count as large, they get a combat bonus. So you can kind of go with the I want an orc who's geared for combat. It's just a kind of mix of spells, extra actions. When in a group, you get to dash, stuff like that. Whereas the so it's kind of like there's this undertone of combat to them. This we have things we can do in combat, which I think halflings and dwarves kind of don't fully have, because it's like Earthglide, yeah, you can teleport in combat, but it probably has a use outside, like getting hit points outside, dark vision, being able to go near lava, being able to deal with high environments. You have a dwarves will be really good for travel stuff. Halflings are kind of going to be very good at stuff outside of combat, whereas orcs might have a slight problem out of combat. Very much depends. I guess they can sprint more, which is useful, which can be useful outside of combat. not being affected by disease. Disease is a very out of combat thing. Poison mixed. Night vision always useful. The spells are a bit of a mixed bag. It's very much up to the player. Nature's Friend is very much an out of combat ability. Powerful builds also out of combat. Yeah, it's kind of a. It's got a slight combat tint to it, but it still has some other stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think once we've done Orc, I think between elves, orcs, halflings, humans, you've basically got all of the traditional, we'll call it traditional Tolkienian fantasy groups done. And I think they're interesting on their own. They're not necessarily like, oh yes, here is this amazing overpowered thing. It's like, no, they're pretty reasonable in what they can do. Have I finished elf? No, I need to come up with the courts. This thing, I have to make these notes, otherwise I'm not going to remember. But yeah. Okay, right, yes, we will, I think, finish for now. I might be back on later to do some video games. We will see. Good. Afternoon games, yeah, perfectly reasonable. But for now, we will finish for now. Let's go raid Logan. We haven't raided Logan in a bit. So, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for joining. And we will see you all next time, hopefully later today with some games.